Alright gamers, how's it going? My name is Fabrizio, whatever you want to call me. This is going to be my first video, probably on YouTube. And it's going to be kind of boring. Also, I should probably be looking at the camera and not OBS, but that's besides the point. A couple of questions about what's going to be going on with Witch Queen's raid. I do have a raid team that I'm going to be going in with. Hoping it's going to be pretty fun. It's been a minute since I've done a raid race. I've never done one as a content creator before. So that's going to be my new goal, I guess, as you could say. Yes, it is a mess behind me. I am a college student, and I have other obligations in my life besides this. But this seemed like kind of a fun idea, a fun little thing to do. I've never been really a content creator before. I've mostly always just been the one doing stuff in the background. But there is a raid race going on for Witch Queen, which will be March 5th, 2022. And I have a team that I'm going to be going in with, and I thought that maybe I would upload this for whoever needs some help and is newer to the game. That, maybe you don't watch Sweatsicle, Dado, other people misleading, other content creators that are frankly much more knowledgeable than I am. And I thought I could answer a couple of questions. So the first question, of course, you're going to be asking, yes, this is a Daddy Swan sticker on my microphone because Swan from Twilight is the hottest man on Earth, and that is straight facts, no cap on God, for real, for real. But the second question you're probably going to be asking is, what should I be doing as someone who's new to raid racing? So I'm going to do my best to show that off. I'm going to move OBS over here and move my screen in. So primarily for this race, I'm going to be playing on Titan. Just because Titan right now with Void 3.0 is really, really good. Solid for keeping everyone alive. Bubble is always fantastic to have. And these are all things that you probably understand, I would hope. Just that, Void 3.0 is really good. And if you have Witch Queen, you've probably been playing with it because, frankly, who hasn't? But if you're newer to the game and need a better way to stay alive, I always recommend Warlock to people. Besides the jump being really difficult to understand when you're a newer player, Warlock is fantastic for 99% of the things that you're going to be doing. Another character I have on backlog is my Hunter, just because Hunters are also really good with Orpheus Rig right now. Orpheus Rig? Orpheus Rig. So yeah, I might also recommend going in with a Hunter. Invis also is really good at keeping people alive. But let's look at Titan for now. Titan we'll use as kind of a general understanding. And hopefully I have the weapons on my character right now. Which, by the looks of it, I don't. So that's fantastic. Just give me 1 second. I guess I could also edit this out if I really wanted. Some dead air in the meantime. The number one thing I'm going to recommend in general is going to be this weapon that's popping up here. Gallahorn is just going to be the best weapon overall for this raid. I think you've probably heard other people talk about this already. But Gallahorn is just a really solid weapon. If you have the Catalyst, especially 2 rockets in the magazine, creating those Wolfpack rounds for everyone else in your team, it's probably the best option going into this raid race. I recommend having at least one person on your team have it, even if you don't own the 30th anniversary, this is your first time raiding. Make sure someone has this gun, because this gun is going to play a massive impact on how your raid race is going to go. It is probably the most solid weapon in terms of damage in the game right now. Don't mind me, I am transferring just a couple of other weapons to use as examples. We'll transfer that anyway. We'll use this. Yeah, I think that's good enough. But the number one thing is just make sure somebody on your team has Gallahorn. If you don't have Gallahorn, though, using any rocket launcher is totally fine. My other option is going to be this Plumera B. Plumera B, just because auto-loading and explosive light is really solid. But you may not even have that. You may not be able to play the game that much, but you still want to raid race. That's totally fine. Just any other rocket launcher. Hothead I recommend. Ascendancy, if you have it, is also fantastic. Anything that just has fast reload and big damage is going to be the number one thing. And just remember, a lot of people are talking about lasting impression. I don't recommend lasting impression. The only reason I don't, and guys like Sweatsicle would disagree, and that's totally fine, is just because DPS is going to be most likely the number one thing. I don't think there's going to be a lot of sustained damage, and that delay in explosion could be the difference. If you have a lasting impression, though, don't worry about it. Still use it. It still could probably be totally fine. But just a rocket launcher in general should be your number one thing for damage. Having a linear fusion like Sleeper or any linear fusion, a legendary, totally fine. Could also be helpful if you need precision damage. I'm going to keep a sword on me just in case as well, just because of last year's race. Remember how that went. So I don't think they would do something like that again, but just in case, I have Lament, and I'll also transfer a couple of other different swords. Just a sword in general is also really helpful. Other weapons, you should probably always have a sniper of some sort ready to go. This firing line, Thoughtless, is also a sniper I'm thinking about using just because firing line does give you a buff in damage. Another thing I want to make very clear, and other people have talked about this, really having any weapon is fine. As long as you have the gun, that's all that really matters. Even if your perks aren't fantastic, you can still be fine. You can still win a race, or even get a raid done in 24 hours without having the most god roll of weapons. You can. Do I recommend having other stuff? Of course, but that doesn't matter. Like, just go in, have fun, make sure you have good stuff on. That's all that matters. Funnel web. Okay, I'm going to be honest right now. Funnel web is probably the most broken gun in the game in terms of PvE, just ad clearing in general, and also damage. I mean, volatile rounds, if you can get it out of the artifact, is super, super strong at the moment. It basically can buff almost any void weapon in general, because it's not only making those enemies explode. I think this is something that people kind of get a little confused about. Volatile rounds don't necessarily just make red bar enemies explode when they die. It also causes explosions on whomever you're shooting. What am I trying to say here? I just lost my train of thought. It'll cause that explosion on whoever you're shooting, no matter what. Like, even if they're not dying, you could still get 4 or 5 explosions on like a yellow bar enemy or an ultra enemy, no problem. And that buffs that damage that you're doing. That's very, very strong, and I really recommend having it if you can. So yeah, just if you can get a funnel web or any void weapon in general, that's also really good. If you can get Frenzy, that's probably just the number one perk. Honestly, it just doesn't matter. You could get Subsistence, that's totally fine too, but just Frenzy in general, that's what you want. And yeah, I mean, that's what I'm primarily going to be using. Literally, Funnel Web will probably never come out. Another thing that we could use, and let me just transfer it real quick if you feel you need something with a little bit more range. Actually, I don't need to transfer anything. I can make this point without it. Use a pulse rifle. Pulse rifles are also very strong and really fun and fresh, as the kids say, I think. Still, I don't know. I have no idea what's being said these days. Just in general, use something with a little bit of range if you feel like you're dying a lot, because you're not going to want to be up close. Like I said earlier, I am bringing a sword, so that kind of seems like a juxtaposition there, but having a sword could be useful if you have to have burst damage in certain situations. So just having that is also safe. But most of the time, you're going to want to stay back. So having stuff with range is going to be the number one thing. Like, this will primarily be my loadout for 99% of the raid, is what you see here. Or this could switch out with like this, or a grenade launcher up here, or anything that can help, right? And that's primarily what you just need to have, is rocket launchers, void weapons, and long range weapons, and or helpful damage weapons as well. Don't have to have the perfect god roll. Just have stuff that's useful. Destiny right now is built around rocket launchers being DPS. And you can get a rocket launcher pretty easily in the game. I know that the Vanguard... there's a Vanguard rocket launcher I don't know the name of. I think it's Royal Entry. I personally don't have a good roll. I just haven't bothered grinding it. I have actual real-life stuff I have to do. So really anything that you can pick in there as a rocket launcher is fantastic. And it's going to be, as long as somebody has Galahorn, you're going to have great damage. Armor-wise, the number one thing, and I guarantee you've heard this from other people, even if you're brand new to Destiny, recovery is the number one thing when you're going into a situation where you're going to be under light. Recovery is what will keep you alive the most, because the faster you can get your health back when you're not being shot anymore is what's going to keep you above the rest of the people you're competing against. Strongly recommend having high recovery as well as high resistance. I know it doesn't show it here, but I'm spec for other stuff, and I didn't really bother to spec up right now. But high resistance is also you take less damage. So both of those things kind of synergize in these situations. So having both of these fairly high, recovery should be your number one focus. Resistance should be your second-ish. And intellect, for this raid race, I won't recommend you necessarily needing to spec super heavy for intellect, because you're not going to want to pop your super often. Pop your super often. Cock it. God, content creator right there. You're not going to want to pop your super very often, because you're most likely just going to hit that rally flag and save your super for when damage phases are going on. So that's going to be your number one thing. Overall, just recovery, resilience are super important. You can spec around what else you think you're going to need later. I like to keep just everything else pretty steady. I keep my mobility low because it doesn't really matter in Destiny. Who cares about high mobility? And yeah, I mean, you'll see other stuff that's slotted in here. The only thing for new players that I really recommend is just making sure you have some sort of resist mod on. This season, you can get thermoshock plating, which makes it so both solar damage and arc damage is reduced. That's really strong. If you have a void affinity armor tier, you can put on void, and then you're covering all three of the things you're most likely going to get shot with. But overall, just make sure you have that. Scavenger perks and ammo finding, just go into here, and if you have the mods, and remember, this is for newer players, so if you're a veteran, this doesn't apply to you. But for newer players, just if you have the mods, put on something that will help you get the ammo for what you care about the most back sooner. So like, I care about rocket ammo because, you know, that's super important to me at least. And then put on a scavenger mod that helps you get more of that quicker as well. And that's really it. I mean, there's other things that I could recommend between protective light, well, tenacity, but that's modding. And as I've taught more people about this game over time, I don't want to focus super heavily on modding if you're newer to the game. Just because it can be kind of overwhelming for people, I've noticed. And this is, you know, for veteran players, this is totally fine because you're used to the game, you're used to the mechanics, you're used to everything. But when you're newer to the game and you don't fully understand what's going on yet, which is totally fine, by the way, do not act like you know what's going on when you don't, because you're going to get imposter syndrome and feel like you need to keep up with everyone. You don't need to do that. Just have fun playing the game. Learning this stuff first is going to be the number one thing you want to do. And then later on, go back, start learning some of the more nuanced stuff like modding and everything like that. And if people want me to make a video on what mods I'm going to be using specifically, let me know in the comments. I can do that. I don't know how many people are actually going to view this, but I felt like it would be a good PSA to just kind of show what I'm doing, and going over like what my build is going to look like. And this is for my Titan. If you guys want to see what I'm thinking about for my Hunter and my Warlock, also let me know. I can gladly show that off as well. But this is primarily what I want to focus on, is just Titan, because Titans right now are really strong. And the last thing I want to end this with is I am going to be running Ukraine colors throughout the entire raid race. I think it's really important that we show support for Ukraine right now and what's going on between the Russia-Ukraine conflict. There's a lot of people being hurt out there right now, so I want to rock Ukraine colors. If in the off chance that I do win, I'm going to talk about it after winning as well. I think it's really important that we do this. I'm running Crest of Alpha Loopy literally just for the fashion right now. I don't think this will be primarily what I'm running, but it just blended really well, and I think Ukraine colors are really important to run. So I personally am going to do that. But yeah, let me know if you guys have any questions. I can try to answer it. Like I said, I'm not a content creator. I've never really done this before, but I'm talkative and I know somewhat what I'm doing in this crazy game of Destiny. And yeah, if you want to see more content, let me know. Hit a like on this, hit that little subscribe button, and I'll try to get some more stuff out there. But this is Febreze, and happy I could help where I could. See you guys later.